Welcome back to the show, Peter King. How you doing, PK?
Hi, Rich. How are you?
What number Super Bowl is this for you?
Well, I 30-something. I mean, my first one was Marino, Montana in Palo Alto. So I'd have to count them up, but I guess 32 or something like that, 33 maybe.
Had I told you that day that Marino would never get back to him, what would you have told me, Peter?
You were out of your cotton-picking mind.
Unbelievable. Isn't it?
I mean, come on. Everybody thought that was going to be the first of 4 for Dan Marino, and that's a cautionary tale to all these quarterbacks, all these great players that, there's only been, this will be the 51st Super Bowl, and there's only one quarterback who's been to more than 4, right?
That's the amazing thing, too, Peter.
He's been to 7.
That's it, right? Because let's just hit on that a little bit here. Marino never got back to it again, right? Dan Fouts, who's going to be in that room with you and the rest of the selectors for the Hall of Fame coming up in 8 days, never got to 1, and he's in the Hall of Fame. We can go on, and I don't think, I'm sure you see it on your social media accounts as well. Anytime you talk about Brady's greatness, you get a bunch of people saying, "Oh, please, cheater," or "Oh, please, just stop inflating him," and they use that word purposely, and But 7, this is a ridiculous number, Peter. We will never see this again. I think we can safely say we'll never see it again from somebody.
Probably, but sports. I think we have to be careful. I remember a few years ago, the first time anybody threw for 5,000 yards in a season, we say, "My God, that's ridiculous. Nobody will do that." And then I remember I interviewed Aaron Rodgers a few years ago about could he be the first 6,000-yard passer? And his first response was, "No way, nobody's going to do that." Well, somebody is going to do that. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying records are made to be broken, but records are made to be broken.
So the Atlanta Falcons, what are you hearing so far amongst our colleagues about their chances to win this game, Peter?
Well, Rich, I think it really depends on the adjustments they can make after they see what Bill Belichick is doing to do one of two things: either to totally neuter Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman, because that is a huge part of what they do, or to try to neuter, Julio Jones. And I think, Rich, that this is going to be a great test for Matt Ryan, because Matt Ryan, at some point during the game, if the Falcons win this game, there's going to be somebody, whether it be Taylor Gabriel, whether it be Eric Weems coming in, whether it be one of those tight ends. I mean, somebody is going to have to start making some huge plays for them who's not named Julio Jones and Devonta Freeman, because I guarantee you that Bill Belichick and Matt Patricia are there in their diabolical trench coats in their lab, the last 3 or 4 days, saying, "Okay, remember what we did to Marshall Faulk 15 years ago? That's what we're going to do to the running back. Remember what we did to so-and-so receiver? That's what we're going to do to Julio Jones." So, and then it's going to be up to Matt Ryan to make adjustments. And I will bet you $1,000 that Kyle Shanahan has already had this conversation with Matt Ryan. Matt, think about who else. Let's think about other plays we're going to use and other disguises we're going to use formationally to make sure that, and 1 or 2 plays in this game, Taylor Gabriel is going to be free with nobody around him, or Hooper, or whoever, because I think that is going to be the key to beating the Patriots, knowing that they're going to take away a lot of what you do really well and the best, and you're going to have to win another way.
Peter, I think you're hitting that directly on the head. I mean, that was an absolute nail that you just hammered down right there, because I think, again, that how do you neuter, as you point out, either the two-headed running back monster or Julio Jones negate him because, in all honesty, you take a look at the metrics, the numbers. The Patriots have never seen an offense like this in the Super Bowl with all of their history in the big game. So how do you do that? You can try to confuse Matt Ryan where he doesn't.
Except I would say, Rich, I would say this. I think you could argue that the greatest show on turf, especially because the game was on turf, I would argue that lineup was as explosive as this one.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Numerically, if you just look, this is just truly statistically, because you know how I feel about the greatest show on turf. I mean,
right.
I sit next to two of the greats of that greatest show every single Sunday. But numerically, just points per game in terms of a 100-yard receiver on average that's coming in together, put it all together, a passer rating. Just statistically, these Falcons are one of the greatest offenses the Super Bowl's ever seen.
Right. Yeah, no question about it. But I think that what happens sometimes in a game like this, we get used to because, I think you have to judge an opponent of the New England Patriots a little bit differently because, and I'm not saying that, the Patriots are superhuman, but what I am saying is that for them, every game plan is a snowflake, both offensive and defensive. You don't know what they're going to do. You don't know how they're going to try to take certain guys away. It's very easy to sit there and say, okay, they're going to use Malcolm Butler on Julio Jones. They're going to put a safety over the top and consistently in the 5-yard bump zone try to hit Julio Jones, maybe bring a linebacker down on him, and just try to beat him up the way they beat up Marshall Faulk 15 years ago. And who knows, maybe that is the way they're going to do it. I don't know. But my point is that I always think it's just a different thing when you play the Patriots. And everybody might say, man, look at the over-under. It's the highest in Super Bowl history, which it is. But I would say it will not surprise me one bit if this game is 19-16. Just because, Belichick I was talking to Bill Parcells yesterday about a few things. And we recalled that 30 years ago yesterday, he was sitting in the car after beating the Denver Broncos in the Super Bowl. He was sitting in the car the next day, and the security guy driving him to the post-Super Bowl press conference. In those days, the coach went, not only the MVP, but the coach is going with him to the guy driving him is named Charlie Jackson, NFL Director of Security. And Bill Parcells was totally effervescent, and he goes, Charlie, do you remember, it was last year, was Ditka as happy as I am today? I mean, how happy was Ditka? But the reason I bring that up is that Bill Parcells, I think his biggest impact on Bill Belichick was that you got to look at every game differently. And you have to judge every game differently, and you have to game plan every game differently. Belichick, I'm sure, would have learned that anyway, but that's one thing that Parcells used to do all the time. And how do you beat Denver and Elway, and how do you beat Jim Kelly in Buffalo, that incredible Buffalo team that scored 51 points in the AFC Championship game? Well, Bill Parcells said, shorten the game, play clock ball, limit the possessions, and then the Bills only had the ball, 19 minutes in the game. And I don't know how Atlanta's going to do it, but I do believe that at the end of the game, Atlanta's not going to score 30 points in this game. It would surprise me if they did.
Last one for you, Peter. Going into the Hall of Fame conversation next Saturday, how much conversation do you and the selectors have prior to walking in that room?
I hardly have any. I usually try during the course of the week, Super Bowl week, to have a good conversation with Rick Gosselin. He is, to my mind, the gold standard of selectors.
In Dallas?
The Dallas writer. He's a good guy. You should have him on next week,
sure.
Rich. He's the most intelligent Hall of Fame voter and authority that I have run into in my 27 years on the committee. I just think he's brilliant. He knows the history of the Hall. He knows the history of the selections. And I want to we're going to talk next week, and I know one conversation I'm going to have is I really want to try to do something about the safety position. I think we as a group have been negligent and almost, I don't want to say delinquent in our duties, but I think we need to pay more attention to the safety position because there have been so few of them here. And look, I think there's a chance with Kenny Easley as the senior committee nominee and with Brian Dawkins and John Lynch and also, Steve Atwater on the doorstep and hopefully one day soon Leroy Butler getting in the room to have his case heard. I would hope we would do something both this year and in the next few years about a position that we have been blind to, quite honestly, and that's safety.
All right, Peter, thanks for the time. Appreciate it. We'll see you down there in Houston.
Thanks a million, Rich.
Always.
Really appreciate it.
Always. Peter King here on The Rich Eisen Show.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.